I came home from 5 years of war in Afghanistan and found my wife standing at the altar in a white dress marrying the man who used to shove my face into locker room tiles in high school. Brad Collins laughed in front of the whole church and said, "Looks like the war finally returned what was left of you." While Rachel looked at me like my survival had ruined her wedding. I did not swing at him, did not beg her, and did not let the town turn me into the unstable veteran they expected. I raised my phone, recorded the ceremony, saved the bank alerts showing my deployment pay had gone to Brad Collins Motors, and said, "Keep talking. I want every word clear for court." Chapter 1. The wedding I was not supposed to see. I thought coming home would feel louder after 5 years in Afghanistan, after dust storms, night convoys, mortar alarms, medevac birds, 3 friends zipped into black bags, and 1 month when my name sat in a missing status file. I expected home to hit me like music. Instead, it was quiet. My hometown looked smaller than I remembered. The roads were clean. The diner sign still flickered on the corner. The old water tower still had the same faded paint. The houses looked like they had been waiting without missing me at all. I had not told Rachel I was coming back that morning. I wanted to surprise her. That was the kind of foolish hope war does not kill. It kills sleep. It kills innocence. It kills the easy belief that tomorrow is promised. But sometimes it leaves one stupid little thing alive. I pictured her opening the door. I pictured her hand flying to her mouth. I pictured her crying into my chest. I pictured myself finally setting down the weight I had carried across deserts and military hospitals and classified debriefings. The house was empty. Not just empty because she was out. Empty in a way that meant a life had been removed. The couch was gone. The wedding photo was gone. The old wooden coffee table I bought before my first deployment was gone. The walls had been painted a soft gray I did not choose. On the fireplace sat a framed photo of Rachel and Brad Collins. Brad Collins. The name moved through me like a cold blade. There are people from childhood who become stories. Brad had been that for me. The football captain, the rich kid, the boy who locked me in a storage closet after gym, the boy who once pushed my face into the wet tile floor and told me I should thank him for teaching me how to kneel. The boy who laughed while his friends threw my backpack into a ditch after school. I had not heard his voice in years, but I remembered it. Some voices stay in your bones. I stood in my own living room wearing a faded army jacket holding a duffel bag with Afghan dust still in its seams staring at a photo of my wife smiling beside the man who once made me hate walking into school. My phone buzzed. A bank alert. Large payment posted. Recipient, Collins Motors Event Services. Amount, $18,400. Source, Walker Deployment Account. I read it twice. Deployment account. That was the account where my pay, combat bonuses, and housing allowances had gone for years. Rachel had limited authority to manage household bills. Not weddings, not Brad Collins, not whatever nightmare I had just stepped into. I opened the front door and saw Mrs. Albright from next door watering flowers. Her eyes widened when she saw me. "Ethan?" "Yes, ma'am." Her mouth opened and closed. You're home." That was the plan. She looked toward the street, then back at me. I already knew before she said it. "Where is Rachel?" Mrs. Albright gripped the hose. "Oh, honey." People only say, "Oh, honey," when they are about to hurt you with information they do not want to own. "Where is she?" I asked again. "At church." "Why?" Her eyes filled with pity. That was worse than fear. "Ethan, maybe you should call someone." I smiled once. It did not feel like a smile. I have been calling people for 5 years. "Where is my wife?" Mrs. Albright whispered, "She's getting married." The church was 10 minutes away. I drove there in 7. I did not remember parking. I remembered the steps. White flowers tied to the railings. A welcome board with Rachel's name written in gold. Rachel Miller and Bradley Collins. Not Rachel Walker. Rachel Miller. My wife had taken off my name before the law did. The church doors were open. Music floated out. The kind of soft piano version of a love song people use to make betrayal look holy. I stepped inside. Every head turned. Some people gasped. Some froze. Some looked away because guilt has reflexes. At the altar stood Rachel in a white dress. Beautiful. Terrified. Not because she missed me. Because I arrived. Beside her stood Brad Collins in a navy suit. Hair slicked back. Smiling like God had personally handed him one last chance to humiliate me. The pastor stopped speaking. Rachel's bouquet trembled. Brad looked me up and down. Then he laughed. "Well, damn," he said. "Look who finally crawled home." The room went dead silent. He took one step down from the altar. "War didn't finish you." I looked at him. 5 years in combat teaches you something about violence. Not how to use it. When not to. Brad wanted me to hit him. I could see it in his eyes. He wanted the old Ethan. The one who flinched finally to explode in front of the whole town. He wanted cameras, witnesses, a violent veteran, a ruined wedding. A story where he and Rachel became victims. I lifted my phone. Pressed record. "Say it again," I said. Clearly. His smile twitched. Rachel whispered, "Ethan, don't." I looked at her. That was her first word to me after 5 years. Not thank God. Not you are alive. Not I waited. Don't. I lowered my eyes to the phone screen. Recording. Good. The pastor stepped forward. "Ethan, perhaps we should speak privately. Are they legally able to marry?" No one answered. I looked at Rachel. "Are we divorced?" Her lips parted. Her father, Frank Miller, stood from the front pew. "Ethan, this is not the place." I turned toward him. "It is exactly the place. You are holding a wedding." Diane Miller, Rachel's mother, began crying softly. "Not for me. For the spectacle." Rachel came down the steps. Her dress brushed against the floor. "You were gone," she said. "I was deployed. You disappeared. I was listed missing after an ambush, then recovered. You received notices." Her face changed. "Just a little. Enough." Frank stepped between us. "You left her alone for years. I served. You made her a widow without a funeral. I am standing here alive." Brad laughed under his breath. "Alive is generous." I turned the phone slightly toward him. "Thank you." "For what?" "For motive." His jaw tightened. Rachel said, "Brad helped me survive." I stared at her. The church blurred for half a second. Not from tears, from the violence of understanding. Brad had helped her survive. With my money. In my house. While my name sat on military records, banking transfers, and probably some forged document buried in a courthouse drawer. I put the phone in my pocket wallet. Kept recording. "Show me the divorce decree." Rachel looked at Frank. Frank looked at the pastor. The pastor looked at the floor. There was no decree. Brad stepped closer. "You don't get to walk back after 5 years and claim her." I faced him fully. "I am not here to claim anyone." Rachel flinched. "I am here to find out who stole from me." The room shifted. People understand betrayal. They lean in. Money makes them nervous. My phone buzzed again. Another alert. Pending transfer blocked due to insufficient authorization review. Recipient, Collins Motors. Amount, $7,200. They were still trying to move money during the wedding. That was almost impressive. I showed the screen to Rachel. Her face went white. "Ethan, did you pay for this wedding with my deployment account?" Brad snapped. "That account supported your wife." "No," I said. "It supported a household I was told still existed." Frank lowered his voice. "Let's not make this uglier." I looked around the church, at the flowers, at the dress. At the man who once shoved me into lockers and now stood in front of me using my money to marry my wife. It became ugly before I opened the door. I turned to the pastor. Please preserve all footage, paperwork, and witness records related to this ceremony. The pastor swallowed. I will. Brad smirked. What are you going to do, soldier? Sue the wedding. I looked at him. No. I looked at Rachel. I am going to audit it. Then I walked out. No paunch, no shouting, no begging. Just the sound of my boots on church wood followed by the panic of people realizing the quiet man had not lost control. He had started counting. Chapter 2. Everyone wanted me to leave quietly. Rachel followed me into the church hallway. Her dress dragged behind her like evidence. Ethan, wait. I stopped near a framed photo of last year's Easter service. Rachel stood in the picture beside Brad, smiling. His arm rested around the back of her chair. Frank and Diane stood behind them like proud parents. I had been in Afghanistan when that photo was taken. I had spent that week sleeping beside a broken wall after an improvised explosive device hit the lead vehicle in our convoy. Funny how two people can share a marriage and live in different worlds. Rachel reached me breathless. Please do not do this here. I turned. What exactly am I doing? You are humiliating me. I stared at her. That word, humiliating. I almost admired the courage it took to use that word while wearing a wedding dress for another man in front of her legal husband. I walked into a church where my wife was marrying my high school bully. Her eyes filled. You were gone. I was at war. You stopped writing. I was missing. You came back different. I came back alive. She looked away. There it was again. Alive, but inconvenient. Frank and Diane entered the hall followed by Brad. The pastor came last. Nervous and pale, Frank spoke first. Ethan, you need to understand what Rachel went through. I would like to understand the divorce first. Frank's jaw tightened. There were papers. Where? We were told things were processed. By whom? Diane whispered. Rachel had power of attorney. I looked at Rachel. Limited power of attorney for bills, insurance, household maintenance, not divorce, not property transfer, not marrying Brad Collins. Rachel whispered. I thought it covered what needed to be done. No, you didn't. Her mouth opened, but nothing came. Brad crossed his arms. This is pathetic. She moved on. Be a man about it. I looked at him. There is a camera above the hallway door. His eyes flicked upward. Good to know. Frank stepped closer, lowering his voice. You do not want this to become public. People respect soldiers. Yes, but unstable veterans make everyone nervous. Think about how this looks. There it was. The new weapon. Not fists in a locker room. PTSD. A label they could use before I spoke. I had seen men carry real trauma. I had carried it myself. The thought of Frank turning it into a town rumor made something in me go very still. Say that again. I said. Frank blinked. What? Say you plan to make me look unstable if I ask questions. His face reddened. I did not say that. No, but you dressed it well. The pastor cleared his throat. Ethan, I am sorry. I did not know there was no final divorce decree. Rachel told us you had been gone for years and that the legal process was handled. I turned to him. Do you have copies of what she submitted? Yes. I need them preserved. Brad laughed. You need a life. I ignored him. Pastor Reed, if this ceremony continues, you may be participating in an invalid marriage. The pastor's face went white. Rachel whispered, you would ruin my wedding. I looked at her. Rachel, I did not bring the invalid marriage to church. That landed. People had gathered near the hallway entrance. Bridesmaids, Brad's mother, Carol, a few old classmates. Carol Collins stepped forward, her voice sharp. You should be ashamed. She waited long enough. I recognized her, too. She had been the mother who told the principal, boys were boys. After Brad broke my glasses sophomore year. I smiled faintly. Mrs. Collins, still explaining your son's behavior, I see. Her face twisted. Brad moved toward me. I did not step back, but I did move my phone slightly so the hallway camera and my own recording had a clean line. He noticed. The old Brad would have shoved me anyway. The adult Brad had loans, a dealership, and a bride wearing a legal problem. He stopped. Smart enough to be dangerous, not smart enough to be clean. Rachel touched my sleeve. I looked down at her hand. Once, that touch could have undone me. In Kabul, I used to take out her last letter and read it until the paper softened. I used to imagine her hand in mine when the night stretched too long and the sky glowed orange from distant fire. Now her fingers felt like someone trying to pull me back into a role, husband, provider, silent casualty. I removed her hand gently. Do not touch me unless my lawyer is present. She recoiled. Your lawyer? Yes. You are really doing this? No, I said. You did this. I am finally asking for receipts. I walked past them into the pastor's office. Pastor Reed followed. Grateful for a task that did not involve emotional warfare. He pulled a file from a cabinet. Wedding intake forms, Rachel Miller, Bradley Collins, prior marriage status, widowed, presumed dissolved, presumed dissolved. I took a photo. Who wrote this? He looked miserable. Rachel filled out the form. Rachel stood in the doorway. Her face was white. I did not know what else to put. You could have put married. You were gone. I was not dead. No one knew. I pulled up my phone and opened the military family notification portal. It took me a moment to get through the login, but my credentials still worked. My hands were steadier than I felt. I found the records. Initial missing notification, follow-up status update, recovery under medical care, restricted communication period, family notice sent, family notice signed, recipient, Rachel Walker, date, time, digital acknowledgement. I turned the screen toward her. You knew I was recovered. She stared at the screen. Diane began crying harder. Frank closed his eyes. Brad looked at Rachel. Something passed across his face. Not surprise, calculation. Good. I took a screenshot. Rachel whispered, they told me you might not come home the same. I nodded slowly. So you spent my pay and married Brad before finding out. That is not fair. No, I said. It is documented. The pastor placed copies of the wedding file on the desk. I collected them. As I left the office, I heard Brad mutter to Frank, do not let him near the house. The house, my house, the one bought with my VA loan eligibility, my deployment savings, my name on the deed. I turned back. Too late. Brad's face darkened. I walked out of the church and into the sunlight. The wedding guests watched from the steps. Some stared with pity, some with guilt, some with the same hunger from before, disappointed I had not bled for them publicly. My phone buzzed again. Bank message, suspicious activity alert, attempted transfer declined. I looked at the name, Collins Motors. I saved the alert, then I called Olivia Grant, a veterans' rights attorney whose card I had received during demobilization briefing. She answered on the third ring. Olivia Grant. My name is Ethan Walker. I just returned from Afghanistan. My wife is trying to marry another man without a divorce, and my deployment pay is being transferred into his business. There was a pause, then she said, do not confront anyone physically. Preserve everything. Where are you now? I looked back at the church, at the wedding. Leave. I already did. Good. Now we make sure they wish you had stayed quiet for different reasons. Chapter 3. My house had his shoes by the door. The house smelled different, not bad, just not mine. Pine cleaner, new leather, a candle Rachel never would have chosen when we lived there together, something expensive and sweet, like a home stage to impress people who did not know who paid the mortgage. I unlocked the front door with my old key. It still worked. That surprised me. Maybe Rachel thought I would never return. Maybe Brad thought changing locks was unnecessary when everyone agreed I belonged in the past. Inside, the entry table held a stack of wedding programs. Rachel Miller and Bradley Collins. Underneath them sat an envelope from the mortgage company addressed to Ethan Walker. That contrast told the whole story. I walked through slowly, phone recording, living room, new couch, new television, photos of Rachel and Brad in frames, kitchen, new appliances, receipts on the counter, master bedroom. I stopped at the doorway. Brad's boots sat beside the bed. His watch rested on my dresser. His cologne stood next to the small wooden box where I used to keep letters from Rachel. The box was empty. I stood there longer than I should have. Combat teaches you how to clear rooms. It does not teach you how to clear your own bedroom of another man's life. A memory hit me without permission. Rachel sitting cross-legged on that bed before my second deployment, folding my t-shirts badly because she was crying too hard to match sleeves. "Come back to me," she had said. I had. The room had not. I opened drawers, financial statements, renovation invoices, a printed quote for Collins Walker Residence Master Suite upgrade. Collins Walker, I laughed once. It sounded dead. In the home office, I found the file cabinet half emptied. My military records were gone. But Rachel had missed the bottom drawer. Inside was a folder labeled VA Home Loan, Original Deed Copy, Loan Documentation, Power of Attorney Paperwork, Limited, Specific, and Clear. Rachel Walker was authorized to manage recurring household payments, insurance renewal, and emergency repair approvals during deployment. Nothing else. Not sale, not transfer, not refinancing, not divorce. I photographed every page. Then I saw another folder tucked behind tax files, divorce paperwork, my signature at the bottom. Except it was not my signature. It looked like someone had studied old Christmas cards and traced confidence over uncertainty. Wrong slant, wrong pressure, wrong spacing between initials. Rachel had not even forged me well. That hurt more than it should have. If you are going to erase a man, at least learn the shape of his name. I put the document in a plastic sleeve from the desk drawer. Evidence, not anger. Evidence. A truck pulled into the driveway. I checked the window. Brad's black pickup. 2 men with him. Of course, he came in loud. This is trespassing. I stepped into the hallway holding the deed. My name is on the property. Brad stopped short. Behind him stood Trevor Nash, his business partner, and another man I recognized from high school, but could not name. Brad's eyes dropped to the file in my hand. "What are you doing in my house?" I pressed record again. "Say that again." His jaw tightened. Trevor looked uncomfortable. Brad stepped closer. "You think a uniform makes you important? I am not wearing one. You know what I mean." "Yes. You mean you need me to be the same kid you used to corner in the locker room." His face changed for a moment. The years disappeared. I saw 17-year-old Brad. Big shoulders. Cruel smile. A room full of boys laughing because cruelty made them feel chosen. "You were pathetic then," he said quietly. "Still are." Trevor shifted. "Brad." I did not move. "Keep going." Brad looked at my phone. "You always needed evidence because you never had guts." I almost smiled. "No. I need evidence because people like you lie once adults. Start listening." He stepped close enough that I could smell the liquor under his breath. "Rachel is mine now." "No," I said. "She is responsible for her own choices." That irritated him more than jealousy would have. "She chose me." "Yes. And you lost." I looked around the hallway, at my mortgage statement, at his boots, at the file in my hand. "Brad, if winning means living in another man's house on another man's deployment pay, you might want a different trophy." His face flushed. He grabbed my shoulder. "Not hard enough to injure, hard enough to provoke." My body reacted before my mind did, not with a punch, with stillness. War had trained the flinch out of me. I looked down at his hand, then at the camera above the doorbell, then back at him. You should let go. His hand stayed. Or what? Or the police report includes assault. Trevor grabbed Brad's arm. Man, stop. Brad shoved me back lightly and released. You are not staying here. I am not asking your permission. Rachel's car pulled in. Then, she hurried inside, still in part of her wedding makeup, dress changed into jeans and a sweater. Brad, stop. He turned. He broke in. He has a key, she whispered. Brad snapped. Then why does he still have a key? I answered, because I own the lock. Rachel looked at the folder in my hand. Her face collapsed. You went through my files. My files. Our files. Then you admit there is still an hour. She went silent. Brad glared at her. I saw the fracture, small, useful. I held up the forged divorce paper. When did you sign my name? Rachel's eyes filled. I did not think it would matter. That sentence did something to me, not rage, clarity. You did not think my consent would matter. She covered her mouth. Brad said, don't answer him. I looked at Brad. She does not need to, the document answered. I walked past them toward the front door. Rachel followed. Where are you going? To my lawyer. Ethan, please. I stopped on the porch. She stood behind me, framed by the doorway of a house she had turned into someone else's stage. I waited. She said, I looked back. No, you spent. That was the first time she had no reply. I left with copies, recordings, and the forged signature. For years, Brad had won because I went home bruised and silent. This time, I left with documents. Chapter 4. The signature that erased me. Olivia Grant's office sat above a bakery downtown. The place smelled like coffee, sugar, and war after paperwork. Her walls were covered with framed certificates, military legal aid awards, and one photo of her younger brother in marine dress blues. She did not waste time on sympathy. She read the forged divorce paper first, then the power of attorney, then the deed, then the bank records, then the wedding intake form. By the end, she leaned back and said, they were either arrogant or stupid, which is better for us. Arrogant. Stupid people make random messes. Arrogant people make patterns because they believe no one will challenge them. I liked her immediately. She tapped the